family needs you, son.
Well, the Jackson family's crooked. They ain't ranchers. They're thieves.
She was the foundation. The one person in this entire story that nobody dared to cross, nobody dared to challenge, and nobody ever imagined losing. Beulah Jackson was not just a character in this show. She was the show. She was the reason the Jackson family had power, had direction, had fear. And now she is gone. And the moment she took her last breath, everything, every alliance, every plan, every carefully built structure of control started falling apart at the exact same time. But here is what most people are not talking about. Her death is not the real story. Her death is the trigger. And what comes after it is going to be far more devastating than anyone is prepared for. Beulah Jackson spent her entire life making sure nobody could touch her family. She built walls that kept enemies out and kept her people in line. She understood power in a way that very few characters in this show ever will. She did not just hold authority. She was authority. Every decision that came out of the Jackson side of this war had her fingerprints on it. Every move, every threat, every moment of calculated silence, that was Beulah. She did not need to raise her voice because everyone already knew what she was capable of. She was the kind of woman who could end something with a look. And that is exactly why her death does not just hurt the Jackson family. It completely destroys the foundation they were standing on, because here's the truth about what Beulah Jackson really was in this story. She was not just a leader. She was the reason Rob Will had not already burned everything down. She was the barrier between whatever ambition Rob Will was carrying inside him and the real-world consequences of letting that ambition run free. As long as Beulah was breathing, there was a ceiling on how far things could go. There was someone who would pull back, who would think before acting, who understood that power is not just about taking. It is about knowing when not to take. Rob Will never understood that. He never had to. Because Beulah was always there to make sure his worst instincts never fully took over. And now she is gone. There is no ceiling anymore. There is nothing stopping him. And that is where this story stops being a ranch drama and starts becoming something much darker. Rob Will Jackson has wanted this moment his entire life. He has wanted the title, the authority, the position at the head of the table. And now he finally has it. But there is a difference between wanting control and being ready for it. And episode 8 is going to expose that difference in the most brutal way possible. Because the moment Rob Will steps into that position of power, the very first thing he is going to discover is that nobody actually wants to follow him. They followed Beulah because she had earned it. She had proven herself over years and years of difficult decisions. She had bled for that ranch, and those people knew it. Rob Will has not earned anything. He has taken. He has forced. He has manipulated. And on a ranch where trust is not just important but necessary for survival, that kind of leadership does not just fail. It collapses, and it takes everyone around it down in the process. The people who worked under Beulah are not going to suddenly shift their loyalty to Rob Will just because he is standing in her place. Loyalty does not transfer like that. It does not move from one person to another just because of a title change. These are people who watched Beulah lead with strength, with wisdom, with a kind of quiet authority that Rob Will cannot even begin to imitate. And they are going to see through him immediately. Every order he gives is going to be questioned internally. Every decision he makes is going to be compared to how Beulah would have handled it. And Rob Will is not going to handle that well, because he is not the kind of man who can deal with doubt quietly. He responds to resistance with force. He responds to questions with anger. And that combination inside a family that is already grieving, already fractured, already looking for stability, is going to be catastrophic. And then there is Wen, the brother who should have been chosen. The one who actually understands what the ranch needs, what the family needs, what it means to lead with something other than ego and brute force. Wen has been pushed to the side his entire life. He has watched Rob Will take everything, demand everything, receive everything, while he stood quietly in the background doing the actual work, making the actual sacrifices, being the steady hand that nobody ever noticed, because Beulah was always the loudest presence in the room. But Beulah is gone now, and Wen is no longer invisible. He is standing at a crossroads that this entire season has been building toward. He can stay silent. He can accept Rob Will's authority the way he has always accepted being overlooked. Or he can finally fight back. And episode 8 is the moment where that decision cannot be delayed any longer. Because every day that Rob Will operates without challenge is another day the Jackson family moves closer to complete destruction. And Wen knows it. He has always known it. The question is whether he has the courage to do something about it before it is too late. But while the Jackson family begins to tear itself apart from the inside, something even more dangerous is developing on the other side of this war. Rip Wheeler is no longer reacting to what is happening around him. He is thinking. He is analyzing. He is going back through everything, every detail, every moment that felt slightly wrong, every decision that led to outcomes that should not have been possible. And slowly, piece by piece, a picture is forming that is terrifying in its clarity. The attack on Rio Paloma was not random. It was not a desperate move made by people acting on emotion. It was precise. It was calculated. It hit exactly the right places, at exactly the right moments, with exactly the right amount of information behind it. And that level of precision does not come from the outside. It comes from someone who already knew everything. Someone who had been watching, listening, and waiting for the perfect moment to act. The enemy that Rip has been looking for outside is not outside. They are already inside the gates. And they have been there the whole time. This realization changes everything for Rip because it means that every person around him is now a suspect. Every face that he trusts, every voice that he relies on, every person who has stood beside him through everything, any one of them could be the one who opened the door to this attack. And Rip is not the kind of man who can sit with that uncertainty for long. He is built for action. He is built for clear enemies and direct confrontation. But this enemy is not clear. This enemy is hidden behind a face he knows. And that makes this the most dangerous situation Rip has ever found himself in. Because if he moves too fast, he could expose the wrong person and give the real traitor time to disappear. And if he moves too slow, the damage will continue. More people will be hurt. More ground will be lost. And by the time the truth comes out, it might already be too late to stop what has been set in motion. There is one particular detail from the trailer that almost everyone has overlooked. And it is the detail that reframes this entire episode. While Rip is focused on identifying the traitor and understanding the how of the attack, Beth Dutton is working on something completely different. She is not looking at the violence itself. She is looking at what the violence was designed to cover. Because Beth understands something about power that most people in this story do not. Violence is a tool. And like any tool, the most important thing about it is not the tool itself. It is who is holding it and what they are building. The attack on Rio Paloma was not just an act of aggression. It was a transaction. Someone paid for it. Someone benefited from it. And that person is not the one who threw the first punch. That person is sitting somewhere quiet, watching the chaos unfold, and waiting to walk in once everyone else has destroyed each other. Beth begins pulling on financial threads, land records, ownership documents, corporate structures that most people would never think to look at in the middle of a war. And what she is going to find is going to shift this entire story in a direction nobody is ready for. Because it is becoming increasingly clear that the Jackson family is not operating independently. Rob Will may believe he is making his own moves, may believe that his rise to power was the result of his own ambition and timing. But the evidence that Beth is uncovering suggests something far more unsettling. Someone positioned him. Someone wanted Beulah out of the way. Someone wanted Rob Will in control not because he is strong, but precisely because he is reckless, because he is easy to manipulate. Because a man who leads with ego instead of wisdom is a man who can be guided without ever realizing he is being guided. And if that is true, then Rob Will is not the real power in this situation. He is a puppet. And the hand pulling his strings belongs to someone we have not fully seen yet. This hidden player theory is the most dangerous thread in episode 8, because it means that nothing that has happened so far is what it appeared to be. Beulah's collapse, the attack on Rio Paloma, the fracture inside the Jackson family, the internal tension that is tearing Rio Paloma apart from within, all of it could be connected. All of it could be part of a single plan designed by someone who is playing a much longer game than anyone else in this story. Someone who does not want one ranch or one family to win. Someone who wants both families weakened, both sides damaged, both structures of power broken down far enough that when the dust finally settles, there is only one person left standing with enough leverage to take everything. And the terrifying part is that this person has been patient. They have been methodical. They have been letting this war play out exactly the way they designed it. And Beulah's death may have been the final piece they needed to move into the endgame. Now consider the timing of everything. Beulah was forced into a corner. She was pressured, maneuvered, pushed into a position where naming Rob Will as her successor felt like the only option she had left. And then almost immediately after that moment, she collapsed. That sequence is not a coincidence. That is a pattern. And this show has always rewarded the viewers who pay attention to patterns. The question that episode 8 is quietly forcing us to ask is not just whether Beulah's death was natural. The question is whether it was allowed to happen, whether someone knew she was vulnerable and made sure she stayed that way, whether the collapse of her health was as carefully engineered as everything else that has been happening around her. Because if Beulah was removed rather than simply lost, then the person who removed her is still in the room. They are still operating, and they are still pulling strings that nobody has fully traced yet. And then there is Carter. In the middle of all this war and betrayal and collapsing power structures, Carter is quietly going through his own destruction. He trusted Oriana completely. He gave her access to something real, something honest, something vulnerable. And she used it. That kind of betrayal does not just hurt. It rewires a person. It makes them question everything they thought they understood about trust and loyalty and connection. And Carter is already in a fragile place. He is surrounded by violence and manipulation and people who see human relationships as tools to be used. The last thing he needed was proof that even the people who seem genuine can be playing a game. But that is exactly what he got. And now he is sitting inside that pain with no real direction, no real guidance, and a level of anger that has nowhere healthy to go. What makes Carter's situation so important to the larger story is what it represents thematically. He is the next generation. He is supposed to be the future of something, but the future cannot be built by someone who has been broken before they even had the chance to become who they were supposed to be. If Carter breaks now, if he lets this pain turn him toward the wrong choices, he does not just damage himself. He becomes another weapon in someone else's war. Another person whose grief and anger can be pointed at a target by someone who knows how to use broken people. And in this story, there are plenty of people who know exactly how to do that. The older generation is fighting for control of what already exists. But the younger generation is slowly losing the ability to imagine anything different. And that loss is exactly what allows cycles of violence to continue forever. Everything in episode 8 is converging at once. The collapse of Beulah's authority, the dangerous rise of Rob Will, the quiet fury of Wen, the traitor inside the gates, Beth's investigation into the deeper financial game, Carter's emotional unraveling, and somewhere behind all of it, a hidden player moving pieces that nobody else can even see yet. Every single thread in this season has been building toward this moment. And Whiskey Limits is the title of this episode for a reason. A whiskey limit is not just a phrase. It is a threshold. It is the point beyond which things stop being controlled and start becoming dangerous. Every character in this story is reaching that threshold at the same time. And when people reach their limits simultaneously, what follows is not just conflict. It is collapse. Rob Will make a decision in this episode that pushes his own people further away. Not because he is stupid, but because he is incapable of leading any other way. He knows force. He knows pressure. He knows how to take. And when the people around him need something different, something steadier, something more human, he will not be able to give it. And that failure will cost him in ways he cannot yet predict. Wen will stop being invisible. The internal tension that has been building inside him for this entire season is going to find an outlet. And when it does, the conflict inside the Jackson family will stop being quiet and start being open. Rip will get close enough to the truth that the traitor will have no choice but to act. And that action will reveal everything. Not in a slow, careful way. In the way that panicked people always reveal themselves, by making a move they cannot take back. Beth will find something in those financial records that changes the entire frame of this war. Not just a clue, a confirmation, a piece of evidence that proves what she has suspected, that this has never been a simple conflict between two ranching families. This is a coordinated dismantling, a deliberate destruction of both sides by someone who stands to inherit whatever is left when they are done destroying each other. And the moment Beth confirms that, the story stops being about who wins this war. It becomes about whether anyone survives it at all. By the end of episode 8, at least one relationship that has felt solid throughout this season will be completely shattered. At least one truth that has been buried under layers of loyalty and silence will finally come into the open. And at least one decision will be made that sets the finale in motion in a way that cannot be undone. Because this is the point of no return. This is the episode where the whiskey limit is reached. where every character steps past the line that separates caution from chaos, where the careful, slow-burning tension of this season finally ignites into something that cannot be controlled. Beulah Jackson is gone. And with her goes the last real anchor this story had. The last person who understood the cost of power well enough to use it carefully. What remains now is ambition without wisdom, loyalty without direction, grief without guidance, and somewhere in the background, a plan that has been in motion far longer than anyone realized. The ranch is no longer just a place. It is a battlefield. And the war being fought on it is bigger, older, and more dangerous than anyone standing in it truly understands. So the real question is not who takes control of the Jackson Ranch. It is not whether Rip finds the traitor or whether Beth exposes the hidden player. The real question is whether any of these people, after everything that is about to happen, will still have something worth fighting for when it is all over. Because survival is not just about staying alive. It is about having a reason to. And right now, in the world of Dutton Ranch, that reason is getting harder and harder to find. Who do you think is the traitor inside Rio Paloma? And do you believe Beulah's collapse was truly natural? Or is there something far darker behind it? Drop your theories in the comments, because episode 8 is coming, and it is going to prove that nothing in this story has ever been what it seemed.